We are live now? Okay.
Oh, we are live. Hello, everybody. Hello, 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 fabulous, glorious Beena. I'm
Hello,
happy to see
everyone. Good morning or good afternoon or good evening, wherever you are. Hello, Syl. Hello, Grain. And hello, who is going to be with us. Hopefully, Norma will be there. And even if not,
you.
I know that she's going to watch it. That's it. It's a real blessing for us. I know that, okay, it's a very peculiar vocabulary to say that blessing, but I have a different understanding of capital B blessing in my life. So I treat all my friends as a blessings in my life, and they are truly they are. Anyway, we are going to do a bit new things, experimenting new things today because yesterday, because of some anomalous network behavior,
Peculiarities.
peculiarities, yes. So it was I was not able to fully grasp because I was so keen to understand and of course extract value out of that story, and this was so interesting, but I was not able to do that. So Syl so generously he says, okay, we are going to do the repeat, which is rare because every day we have so much to share, and of course Syl has so much to share, new things, new ideas, perspectives. But today we are going to do the repeat. And repetition, capital R repetition, is one of the, of course, profound terms or dictionary of power terms we have, because repetition is a deliberate choice. It's an exercise of making deliberate choices again and again. Also, that it is the emphasis and focused attention. And on top of that, the repetition actually just gives you this understanding that this is something important, and even though it's a repetition, you're not going to feel bored with that. It's another mechanism to check that is this really your priority, is this really your choice, is this really your interest. So repetitions are a profound mechanism to check, because when we see things and when we do things over the time again and again, and after sometimes people say that, oh no, it's not getting bored out of this because it's been many times I have eaten this favorite dish of mine, or I've been wearing this favorite dress, or I've been reading this book or watching a movie, listening to this. It can be anything. But when we really truly like things in an abstract and also in the local um, aspect, then we don't get bored with that. And also that when our intent is clear, when the clarity of intent and the purity, this is something Syl is going to elaborate, the purity of intent, how important it is. When we have the purity and the clarity of intent, then we choose things not because what they are, but we choose things because we want to, because we have made our focus there to get value. And this is what we are going to do. Still, without any further delays, we are just getting to this repetition, capital R repetition of the story.
Yes. So repetition is part of capital P practice. Yes. And capital P practice is not only doing things over and over again, but capital P practice is doing things so that we can be comfortable with our learning. Not only comfortable with learning, which means we need to be comfortable with being wrong. This is very key. If we cannot be comfortable with being wrong and have being wrong be a non-issue, we can't learn, right? Very important. But before I go any further, something else most important. Hello, 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 Norma. Norma is here, Beena, and that's just too fabulous. Wonderful, wonderful. I'm thrilled you're here, Norma. I'm thrilled you're here. Say again, Beena.
I was just saying hello, Norma.
Oh, good. Okay. So now this capital P practice, right? It is, yes, it's repetition, but it's repetition with iteration. That's very important, right? You're doing it, and then you make a slight adjustment, and then you repeat. You make a slight adjustment, you repeat, and because the adjustment is the improvement, until you get to a point where, okay, I can't make an improvement, but can I do this innately? Can I do this automatically? Can I do this innately and automatically? And does it come from inside me? Is it in my body? But capital P practice also says, I'm not going to practice it to the point of unconscious habit, unaware automaticness. No, my practice means that every time I do it, it is conscious and deliberate. At the same time, it's innate. Yeah. So I can do it right away, but it's also deliberate, right? And that's very important, because otherwise you set up a habit for being unaware. So capital P practices many things, and the repetition isn't just mindlessly doing it over and over again. And part of the magic of this particular repetition is to cultivate deliberateness. Yes. Beena says hello. Norma says hello, Beena. Wonderful, wonderful.
Yes, yes.
Right. So this deliberateness, it is an absolutely crucial, critical skill to practice. I cannot emphasize how much it is absolutely essential to our awareness, to our way of being, to acquiring independence of being, and to have true awareness and not be a slave to habit, etc., etc., etc. We need deliberateness. So whenever we are engaged in capital P practice, we are doing more than practicing the particular skill. We are also practicing the skill of deliberateness. Capital P practice, not the B. I saw in the transcript that said capital B practice. No, 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 no. Capital P. Yeah, there we go. Capital P practice. Yeah. So we are practicing deliberateness. Doesn't matter which skill, particularly we are practicing. Like today, I'm going to be practicing my reading skills, right? To read it like a reader does for the audiobooks, yes? And this is something that I constantly practice. Every time I read the story, I practice that, yes? And Beena also. It's a very cool skill. It's a very different skill. When I first started, I was very awkward and uncomfortable doing this and doing the voices and everything, right? And as the more you do it, the better you get, right? And also, part of reading is that your eyes have to read the sentence before you say it ahead, right? So you're always reading ahead and you're speaking a little bit behind. Why? Because that reading ahead allows you to get the cadence and the emphasis and the nuance, and then you can adjust as you go, right? So it's a very sophisticated technique that you need to do, but it becomes innate and automatic, right? I don't, yes, I'm being deliberate, but at the same time, I'm not like really straining and stressing to do it, as you can see, but that makes a very big difference. So this is just an example of capital P practice, but I'm practicing being deliberate. This is very important, this deliberateness, very, very crucial. And just to touch on another point that you mentioned, which was purity of intent. This is absolutely critical. We need to have clarity of intent. But I can be very clear that, I want to steal somebody's things. Have that intent. Yeah. I can have clarity intent about being a criminal. And yes, when you have that, it's going to make you a better criminal. I hate to say that, but the problem is the universe is going to come and give you a smack at some point. Yes, the universe does not reward corrupt intent. It may take a long time, but it always will give a smack to corrupt intent. Yes, there's, you can just look around you and see this. Don't take my word for it. You'll see. Right? It's very powerful. Or you pay a very high price for that intent to be materialized, right? A very, very high price sometimes. Just look at dictators and it seems like, oh, it's all wonderful. No, they live in paranoid fear all their lives. It's terrible. Absolutely horrible. Yeah. It's a very high price they get for whatever they think is this wonderful thing that they have. It's dreadful. All right. So purity of intent is very, very crucial. And on that point, we are going to see purity of intent come through. If we pay attention, we see this all the time from Biella and of course from Ursula also. And Heila picks up on this purity of intent. And it is why she's able to make the friendship gesture, right? And it is very powerful because she's she immediately picks up on this purity of intent. It's not only in this instance where there's the purity of intent, it is throughout the entire story. And purity of intent is what makes Nobelia society work, because every single aspirant and new noble is acutely aware that all the others also possess purity of intent. So there's never a doubt, there's never a question about the intent of another. So when somebody does something that you don't understand, let's say they sometimes say something and you say, oh man, that was kind of rude, or wow, that's harsh, or whatever. You don't get upset, right? You say, that's real odd. I know they have purity of intent, but that didn't come out like it was purity of intent. So then you go and check and you say, hey, Beena, yesterday or in the moment, what you just said, that doesn't compute. I'm not following you. I'm not understanding, right? And then you'll say, yes, but I was doing it for this reason or that reason or whatever. And then you'll explain, right? Yeah, I was doing this experiment to see how you would respond to me saying something weird. And wow, this is fantastic. Or you might just say, well, sorry, I slipped a bit there. But typically there's a good reason for odd behavior. Doesn't Beena just look so fabulously beautiful?
Thank you.
Sorry, I hope to say this, but I'm just feeling Venus' innerness, her moreness come out, and it's not a physical thing. Yes, the light and the hair and the blue and it's all, but it's the purity of intent that we are seeing in Beena. Yes, you see it come through, right, Beena? That's the point, right? So to connect, I'm not a great fan of compliments on physicality, because physicality is kind of it's not an issue. However, I do feel very comfortable to compliment purity of intent, purity of spirit, purity of soul. Yeah, and that's why we love Beena. That's why we love Norma. Yes, we can get caught up. We can get caught up in habits of being, habits of believing. The stuff that we've accumulated since childhood, that are deeply ingrained in us, right? That's why deliberateness is so important. Because when we don't have deliberateness, those habits of the culture can pop up and come and cause problems, right? Because they're in us.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
They're there.
Yes.
This is why it's very important to cultivate deliberateness. And particularly in this environment here, which is an alternative paradigm to superiority paradigm, right? Here in these lives, in this little mini community that, sometimes it's just me and Beena, but right, today it's me and Beena and Norma, and, other times maybe Cheryl or Janet or whoever, right? Whoever comes, right? But those who understand and have been on Zoom with me, especially, like the participants of Way-of-Impeccability and Janet, who, used to come regularly. I hope we get back to that, Janet.
Oh, yes.
We enjoy that. But there's an understanding of the alternative paradigm. In other words, this alternative paradigm means no competition, no personal ambitions. In other words, oh, look how clever I am, look how sensible I am, look how wise I am, look how spiritual I am. Holy moly, come on, seriously, and also no competitive comparisons. Oh wow, Beena knows so much, Beena's so wise. Oh, I must be stupid. Oh, that makes me feel terrible. Compared to Beena, I'm just a doofus. None of that nonsense. It's absolutely irrelevant. The wiser and more genius and more awesome Beena is, the more I'm going to celebrate this. Why? Because it benefits me. I get to learn from somebody. This is the
If
fascinating
that
thing
would
with
be,
superiority paradigm. Hold on, Beena. I want to just say, the fascinating thing with the superiority paradigm is that they hate people that are more than them because it makes them feel less. What a loss. What an incredible loss. So they cannot get value from those that know more than them in whatever instance it is, right? And also, part of this paradigm and part of Nobelia-Living is that, yes, let's say I'm, an expert in sailing, okay, right, or golf, yeah, and I share with you. I get benefit from sharing my expertise because I get to practice it. Have to be practiced. So it doesn't matter. There's not a oh, I've got more value, you've got less, and it's no, there's no hierarchy. The amount of value is the same regardless if I'm the one who knows nothing or if I'm the expert. Makes no difference. I get the same profound value either way. And I really want to emphasize this point. It is a crucial aspect. That's why you see the older new nobles, they hang out with the aspirants. Yes, because they get value out of it. Right? It's amazing. Every time, and they may say the same things over and over again, but they never ever, it never comes out the same. Right? Never ever. It's always coming out different because perspective shifting is so innate, right? So they're always doing something different. All right, you wanted to say, sorry, I know I paused you there, but I really wanted to make that point.
No, it was, no, I was just, when you were sharing, I was thinking, if that would be my thought, I would not be able to even attend one single Zoom with you.
Exactly.
Because there was,
exactly.
Okay, I'm not saying that, okay, that because, oh, I'm humble or not. I'm just sharing the facts. I was in no competition at all. No competition at all.
You've never
Because
been.
because I don't know that why we get out of this habit. When we want to learn, we have to be open and be in the student mindset.
Exactly.
I'm not saying that, okay, he's teaching, but I have to be. It's like, just like, okay, I have a
Correct.
picture
Correct.
and I want
Correct.
to have a passport.
Correct.
I need to be at the receiving end. Simple.
Exactly.
It's not because
in other words, we need to be an aspirant rather than a student.
Exactly.
Yes. Because an aspirant, a student is in the mindset of learning from somebody else. An aspirant is learning by themselves, utilizing whatever comes their way. And they have capital R receptivity, like the Sophie story, right? And that means no matter how valuable what you say is, I will always make a deliberate choice to accept it and incorporate it and make it my own. So an aspirant makes it their own. A student takes on what comes. There's a very big difference, right? An aspirant will never, ever just take on blindly, yes, and be a follower. No. They are learning to be the expert themselves by themselves, but they are utilizing you as a shortcut, right? But they need to make it their own. It is absolutely crucial to the entire true learning process and acquiring independence of being. If you don't make it your own, you'll never have independence of being, right? And you'll never be real, right? So you have to do this. So an aspirant, very different to a student. But your point is taken, though, that you, in our relationship, you're always in aspirant mode, as am I. Always.
Exactly.
Always. Yes. You are perpetual aspirant.
Okay.
All right.
Yes, you are a very different and usual person. Yes, you are an anomaly. But even if someone who would not be like this,
Beena, sorry to pause you. Beena, Norma says she's struggling to hear you. So in your audio settings for Zoom, go and turn your microphone volume all the way up.
It is, but
it is?
Yes.
Okay, then you just have to sit a little closer to the. Is it better now, Norma? No. When Norma was born, her ears came out first. See, that's why she says her ears are old. And then much later, the rest of Norma came.
We all are different here. Norma, I was a question mark. My mother's claimed that she didn't give birth to a girl. She says I gave birth to a question mark because I was asking questions. So maybe or later the doctor was saying that, okay, oh, you have two big eyes. Okay. So actually,
is it better now? Is it better now, Norma? Is it better now? Yeah. All right. I want to get started on the story because it's a fairly longish chapter, and I want to read the whole chapter, and I want to get going. I mean, I love our discussion, and this is what we're here for. But this is a Sunday that we're doing a repeat of. So, on Sundays, I read through the whole chapter, and then we discuss afterwards. In the week, we read and we discuss as we read. So I'm hoping it's better, but For right now, as long as you can hear me, that's important. He says very
Exactly.
egotistically. I'm joking. I'm joking. All right. I hope it's better. I hope it's better. All right. And let me do the screen share and I'll start reading. Right. So chapter 14. And we are at 20. I'll make a note in comments to say that the story starts at 20, right? 10:20, 20 minutes in.
Okay.
Yeah. We can have
I'm
that
going to
then.
just listen now.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, yes. So come on. There we go. And let me move this across. Then I can have it see everything be good. There we go. Chapter 14, Heila's story. Everything is geared to assisting us with our awareness. Everything forces us in some way to think for ourselves, to raise our awareness. Scriptures are excellent examples of this mechanism, containing the entire range of truths from the profound to the absurd, including contradictions and variations. If we are earnest, sincere, and honest, we can only come to this point by ourselves. Scriptures force us to choose. Through those choices, we raise awareness. An incredibly profound example of the mechanism I see in everything. Everything is geared towards aiding us with our awareness. Everything. From understandings of the new nobility. Heila set herself, evidently a lot on her mind. I find your response so interesting because it's something I'm currently cultivating in my own life, though it's been hard for me to put into words. The idea I can let my intuition guide me into whatever I'm supposed to be doing at that moment, whether it seems productive or not. There have been times where I felt I should have been doing something else, some household task or errand, but spontaneously decided to go to the bookstore instead. And while I was there, found some book that profoundly changed my life. On many worlds, the printed book had held a surprisingly steady place of reverence, despite many predictions of its imminent demise. I can also say something similar happened when I heard your comments to Camillus and Ursula and decided to friend you. I have never friended a stranger, but for some reason I felt like I needed to do that. Then, next day, there's that communication to Idumania at the origin story, which happened to be about something I had just been discussing with my husband a few days prior when I'd messaged him, and which had been on my mind. It felt like a hint that that particular hurdle is the one I need to be looking at right now. That judging myself by my productivity. Heila's last sentence did not quite fit, but both Ursula and Biella refrained from asking for clarification, and explanations seemed to be forthcoming. Heila elaborated. I write fiction, or rather, I try to write fiction. When I was younger, in my teens and early 20s, I wrote prolifically, but I didn't have the life experience to write the sort of literary material I wanted to write. I could be witty and clever. I could construct watertight plots, but there was something major missing. It didn't bother me because I always felt I was doing what I should be doing, pursuing what I should be pursuing, and the universe would work things out in my favor eventually. A sadness crept into Heila. Then, following a series of negative life events, years of depression and anxiety, and finally, a settling in of the idea that time is passing so quickly, that I don't have the time to be wandering and finding myself like I did in my teens and early 20s. I realize I'm still young by most people's standards, but I can't shake that eternal feeling of, is what I am doing right this moment the best possible use of my time? Heila's earnest sincerity, her plight of being, pulled at Biella. She noticed it pull at Ursula. Good. The pull of the earnest being is a powerful and magical force. The problem is, Heila continued, the kinds of things I tend to think I should be doing are the mundane tasks that don't really matter in the long run. because they are never really done anyway. Housework, etc. At some point over that time, I lost my ability to write. Every once in a while, I'll have a time or a day where I'm able to write like normal and the story flows out. But most days, it feels like trying to squeeze a large object through a very small hole. My writing is stunted and sounds like it came from a young child. It's bizarre to me because there are those shining moments where I can write when it comes out naturally like it used to. Then I go right back to not being able to find my words, so to speak. A look of uncertainty crossed Heila's face. I've said I honestly feel like a person who sustained brain damage. I thought for a long time maybe the years of depression and anxiety took an actual physical toll on my brain, the way it did on my body. But then how to explain those random days I can write normally? Honestly, I am not sure what's going on. But I do know I feel like my spirit has been stopped up by the inability to express myself through my writing. It feels all wrapped up in that sense of time passing too quickly. It feels like a spiritual battle of some kind. I read books and articles that say things like, just plant your posterior in a chair and write. Writer's block is just laziness, etc. And I'm sitting here like, clearly, you have not experienced what I'm experiencing. It's like I have the story to tell, and most days, no voice to tell it. Biella and Ursula both nodded in empathy. Ursula took her cue from Biella, not allowing herself to slip into commiseration. Ursula had noticed this during Biella's interactions with Camillus, an incredible ability. The new nobles made a point to not tacitly support any forms of self-pity, especially those which potentially might arise via inappropriate empathy, a sophisticated insight, one requiring the utmost of self-control and awareness. A preemptive readiness required to not automatically and inadvertently express emotional support for attitudes and emotions they did not actually support, particularly those which were actually untenable, such as self-pity. All too easy to prompt the speaker into a particular emotional direction. This the new nobles hold in acute awareness. Ursula had noticed Biella's extreme care in how she applied her emotional reactions, how she never had any internal approval or disapproval. She'd noticed Biella make inordinate efforts to counteract the assumptions from Camillus of approval or disapproval by her. Despite her best efforts, it seemed Camillus was simply not ready to believe someone could not have those as an internal mechanism. These psychologies too integral on his world and to his way of being. Ursula pulled free from her thoughts, returning to Heila. Anyway, I just wanted to respond to your comment. You seem like a very interesting person, which is not something I come across every day, especially someone who enjoys conversations about spiritual and philosophical topics, about the spiritual search in general. It feels like the most important thing I could be doing, but I struggle with the feeling I'm just being lazy, that I should go out and live a normal life like everyone else. But that thought is so awful to me. I think I'd honestly rather die than live the rest of my life like most of society. Just seems like such a cosmic waste somehow. Ursula felt the spontaneous hug arise within her and went with it, pleased with herself for having the awareness to notice Biella doing the same. Even more pleased to realize that had Biella not done so, she would have had the time to stop her impulse, accelerating that awareness. Ursula thrilled at the ability to be honestly spontaneous and to have a measure of control. The trick was to be aware of its happening, to first allow, then to check. It only took fractions of a millisecond in real time. In the realms of awareness, a long time. Biella and Ursula both hugged Heila in solidarity, who returned the hugs in the same spirit. They'd extrapolated the friendship gesture from earlier correctly, adding into the hug a welcome to the path they'd ventured out. Heila now a sister of the path, or an aspirant in spirit. Oh, Heila, I can't tell you how much I am enjoying your reply, and how thrilled I am to know you, Biella said. Ursula nodded her agreement. No need for her to say anything. Biella led in this, gracious in the broader sense. Her statements included Ursula, not in a presumptive way, not at all, but in a way which communicated she was taking a liberty in assuming somewhat on Ursula's behalf, an educated guess Biella making in the interest of smooth flow. Always implied, if she was off in her inclusion in any way, she took it for granted Ursula, or any whom she extended this to whom she extended this exquisite courtesy, would speak up as necessary. But so far Ursula had never found it necessary, occasionally feeling she might have added something minor. However, she'd come to enjoy the role of observer. To her, it held incredible value. Any additional comments she might provide would not make a material difference, but would affect her assumed stance of remaining just outside the interactions. Biella added, I'm delighted it's off to the races, without unnecessary life-driven, right to the heart of it. That's where we live anyway. This too is the heart of the matter. Living in the heart, living with the heart, but not the usual heart, a heart tempered with impeccability. Biella took Heila's hands in her own. With a quick, inclusive glance to Ursula, said, I'm most excited to your reply is a marvelous gift. Thank you. I'm most excited. Your reply is a marvelous gift. Thank you. The entire thread and scope of the issue at hand is central to me and the way I live. It's connected in a larger way to what I am currently involved in. There's magic to it, as you have already noticed. From my side, I see so much overlap and confluence, interconnectivity and potentiality. Fantastic. It's the way of these things. Living with them and studying them has enabled me to see the multi-threadedness of it. Heila made the statement as a personal one, even though she was also speaking for the new nobility as a whole. Biella was taking the friendship gesture from Heila into cognizance, affirming its special meanings and implications. From the fullness of your reply, I'll take it you're not averse to going deeper, Biella continued. It's a serious issue. From my perspective, I'm completely here for you. Avail yourself of my ear as much as you like. I'll share, for I feel that's all I can do. I will share my perspectives, ideas, conceptions, and thoughts as much as you like. This is what I live on. There's more. Biella made sure Heila understood, and Ursula. This applied to both of them. Even though she was speaking to Heila, Ursula was included. Biella's sober tone, focused, not an offer lightly made. She'd taken the gesture of friendship from Heila in its intended spirit. Biella shifted tone, moving from the promise she'd just made to an offer. The more is an adventure, if you're willing. I'd like to invite you to the adventure. At first, all is not entirely clear. I ask you to bear with me. Soon enough, the adventure will envelop you. Of this I am sure. At this point, the decision to continue can be made with the pertinent information at hand. The problem is context. Biella took a long, deep, frank look at Heila. Something is missing. It seems like you do not know me, only a knowing from yesterday. Yet you were present at all my interactions with the delegation and the conversations with Cornelius and Ursula. Biella was confident she'd said enough to prompt Heila to fill in the missing information. Switching back to the larger theme, Biella said, some of the context I'm referring to is synchronicity, or its variant the new nobility have expanded upon, of anomalies, their relation to the universe and ourselves, of how we, the new nobility, use triangulation within our personal interactions with the universe to extend ourselves to facilitate awareness. And the grand context of it all, appropriateness. Biella stopped taking into consideration the huge entirety of what it meant to be a new noble. She felt in the case of Heila, a reiteration at this point was not appropriate. Biella was laying out concepts and perspectives as potential paths for Heila to perhaps use as a means to get to a story. Heila still had a story to tell. She began again. I'm definitely not averse to going deeper. This is something that's held my interest for a long time. Synchronicity and the feeling I'm somehow a character in a story, my story. That time is not linear, but rather folds and twists up onto itself. So maybe the synchronicities we experience, the pieces of the puzzle we pick up along the way, seem familiar to our souls in a way our thinking minds can't quite grasp, like we're remembering rather than learning anew. There's that overwhelming sense of rightness when I'm doing something the way I should be doing it, and the sense of feeling I'm forcing things when I'm deviating from the path. Heila peered into the distance. For me, this manifests as something as small as the route I take to work, or whether or not I run this or that errand before or after work and such. I'm continually amazed at how, if I listen to this tiny intuition, how good things seem to come out of it, and how I feel on some very deep level the appropriateness of it. Even if nothing over it seems to come of it one way or another, my heart feels soothed. Like just listening to my intuition was a step in the right direction, whether what transpired was particularly meaningful or not. I've also noticed the more I live this way, the stronger my intuition becomes. The bliss of being, Ursula said. Biella's earlier statement had resonated deeply with her. Now again, here it was, repeated in another form, from a different perspective. Biella nodded at her, understanding what was taking place. Yes, Ursula, it's the universe providing confirmation, or overlap, Biella said. Ursula was beginning to see just what Biella and the new nobility meant by being, by living in tune with the greater flow. To Heila, Ursula says, what you have just said so beautifully is a rephrasing of a theme Biella had earlier elaborated upon. It connects, provides another perspective for me, a confirmation and an emphasis, a representation of the main underlying philosophy and perspective of the new nobility, a confirmation that you and we all are not only part of our own story, but you also have now become a part of our story. It seems at this point in time, my story and Biella's are closely linked. She checked with Biella for confirmation. Yes, Ursula, Biella nodded. Sometimes that's the way of it. These intimate connections are magnificent. They come and they go, and they're always stupendous. Sometimes they blossom from a single joined flower to a garden of linked delight. With a glance, Biella indicated the swarming birds and flutterbys in the sky garden. The flutterbys had for a while now been coalescing into long, thick, slowly fluttering ribbons of color and joy. The fluid aerial rivers of flutterbys flowed into and out of the streamers of flowers which crisscrossed the circular area of the garden. The birds responded, forming incredible multi-species swarms. Bigger birds leading great gusts of winged delight into loops and swirls around, up, and under the flutterby ribbons. For a few minutes, the birds had abandoned their once only feeling and engaged in what to their audience appeared to be a dance of sheer delight. The three friends watched the magnificent cross-species murmuration, entranced and enthralled. At some unknown signal, the cohesion disintegrated, the birds resuming their individual flight paths. Biella laughed delightedly, the energy of the miraculous beauty bursting forth from her. Ursula and Heila joined. The joy of living, the joys of simply being alive, of being, coming forth from them in joyous, scintillating laughter. This unexpected spontaneity and marvel energized Heila. Anyway, she said, taking a deep breath, preparing herself for the long story. The intuition seems to take three forms. The small voice telling me moment to moment what I ought to be doing. if I listen to it instead of to the nagging voice of my rational mind, telling me I ought to be doing something else. Tiny psychic glimpses, like feeling I will run into someone someplace, finding out later I just missed them, and also getting a good sense of people. I think this is my strongest suit, intuition-wise. I have a good ability to read between the lines, so to speak, to see to people's motivations and fears, to make connections between concepts. Even if it feels like a logical leap of faith at the time, the words came fast. Heila on a run now. I'm intrigued by the idea of anomaly versus synchronicity, because there have, indeed, been things which happen to seem extremely special among synchronicities. Incredibly powerful things that seem handcrafted just for me, just for that moment in time when I'm experiencing it. Sometimes things happen that I don't understand the meaningfulness of it at the time. But a day or a week or a month later, it becomes clear why this or that happened. Like things were being set into place for me in advance, such as burying symbols in a story, and the reader has no clue what they mean, or their importance when they read them. They don't think much of them. And then, when they appear again later, their significance is understood. Biella nodded in agreement. This process, this interaction with the universe, is central to the way the new nobility live, Biella said. Many don't fully understand this about the new nobility. It's not just something that is part of their lives or something that adds to their lives. Interaction with the universe is their lives. Everything flows from this connection. All direction is taken from this relationship. Our lives are a living link to the universe, to our greater selves, to ourselves. It's not a restricting or binding relationship. That too is misunderstood. The premium is still on our volition, on our responsibility for our own living, for our own learning and growth. However, if we are to progress beyond the confines of our always limited knowledge, we need a window, a doorway to the unknown, to the yet to be known. We need those connections to be in directions relevant to us, beneficial to us. These new connections are not something we can know from the information we have accumulated. For what we are trying to access is knowledge as yet unknown to us. For this, we use the anomalies. Anomalies are those openings and glimpses of the path to come. Through the anomalies we go forward. Through the anomalies we take shortcuts. Through anomalies we leap, we bound, we sail, we fly. Anomalies are the true magic of our existence. Biella had said this as an interlude, a necessary interpose, not in a way which invited comment or elaboration, but simply as appropriate context. She returned her attention immediately on finishing, back to Heila, allowing the flow to resume as if uninterrupted. Heila continued, appreciating the way Biella had added without detracting. I'm intrigued by the idea of creative triangulation. It's strange how this happens. I have definitely experienced it in my life. It's like I'm pursuing some idea or feeling, something I want to delve into spiritually or creatively, and for whatever reason, I get burned out. Either I get to the end of my knowledge, I get discouraged, or I just plain don't have the mental energy to continue. Then I will meet someone or have a random conversation that seems to spark everything up again. Sometimes I'm truly shocked at how these things just appear at the right times. If I'm open to seeing it, even the bad things that happen sometimes, happen often, seem to have meaning after the fact. Even the bad things that happen often seem to have meaning after the fact. Heila, still infused by the energy of the sky god, and let her thoughts flow out in long breaths. So yes, I'm really excited about the possibilities. I have had chronic headaches my whole life, which within the past year have turned into chronic migraines. I have noticed it always seems after truly horrific headache breaks, the creativity will flood in. I will have a burst of inspiration. I will be more lucid. I will be more articulate and be able to put thoughts and concepts together. However, recently the headaches have gotten too constant to bear. I finally went to a doctor here to get medicine and got medicine and everyday medication. The doctor thought the chronic headaches of my whole life were the same basic process as the migraines, just more or less pronounced, depending on the day. So she figured an everyday medication was the best choice. I didn't have much hope for it to work. I've been living on common headache medication for the past 20 years. But the first night I took the new medication, I was lying in bed, and about an hour later, I felt a clarity in my head. It was like it started in the center and spread out. The same feeling you get when your stuffy nose suddenly clears. I'm 3 days into it. I have no headache today for the first time I can ever remember. Heila paused, taking a deep breath. I'm telling you this because it seems some of my clarity of thought is coming back now. I don't believe I could have spoken these thoughts to you or really grasped your explanations if I had been having this conversation a year ago, or even a month ago, or 5 days ago. Suddenly, I have rekindled an old friendship, embarked on a few new ones, and have started mulling the philosophical stuff I enjoy so much. The timing is amazing. The way these invitations to open my mind and my social circle have fallen in my lap right when I have finally found some relief from the mental fogginess that's plagued me for years. And with it, some of the social anxiety. It's hard to be social when you never know from moment to moment if you'll be able to handle a conversation. The cynical part of me tells me not to get my hopes up. There's nothing saying I won't be sidelined with a migraine tomorrow and be right back into the mental brick wall I've been butting up against for years. But there's another part of me that says these things are far too perfectly aligned to be mere coincidence. That alone should comfort me and tell me I'm on the right track. Heila smiled with a mixture of sadness and hope, laced with joy and excitement. It resulted in a curious expression which made Ursula and Biella giggle. Heila was confused for a second before realizing, a moment before joining them as she reflected on their marvelous lack of inhibition and completely free mirth. There was nothing at all in their giggling she could possibly take offense or object to. Heila, smiling broadly, added, I can't tell you how much I need to internalize the idea of the appropriateness of my actions and of the things happening, because it feels like a spiritual compass. If I can feel like I'm fulfilling my storyline cosmically, spiritually, I know that feeling of I should be doing something else will go away, and potentially my creativity will come back. Because how can you argue that you should be doing something else when what you are doing is nothing less than fulfilling your spiritual destiny, whatever that may be? Biella and Ursula nodded, without implying any commentary, simply indicating her words were comprehended. They were staying open in case there was more. But Heila was done for now with telling, but not listening. She wanted more. Heila responded. Your sharing and thoughts make me joyful, make me laugh with sheer joy, Biella said, and laughed with sheer joy. This is excellent. There's so much. I don't know where to begin. I'm going to go over it all again. I had many thoughts I wish to extrapolate on as I listened to your beautiful telling. I love earnestness. It has a profound effect on me, especially earnest questions. They tap into parts of me I cannot readily access. What results is always more than I would have thought. On our future conversations, I'm simply going to get to the heart of things and not worry too much about supplying the background or support. If those are needed, we can do so retroactively. If anything is puzzling or contradictory, please ask. I thrive on being asked. It leverages me. A fantastic triangulation. This is not because I might have an answer, more the opposite. It's the most marvelous mechanism for creating answers. Biella used the opportunity to set up some fundamentals, as those would be relevant to Ursula as well. A quick note on conversation mechanics, she began. For me, these conversations and questions I ask are like message in a bottle conversations. only in the sense I never expect a reply in any time frame. If I do receive one, it's an inordinate gift. This is the same for anything in my life. Having the freedom to reply or not, as one deems appropriate, without pressure or obligation, is an extension of the appropriateness mechanism. It's much the same with following that inner sense. I wish to make it absolutely clear. Any conversations and interactions will hopefully always only be engaged in if that is truly the desire and feeling of the moment. That they are purely because we want to. This is critical, as it is part of the entire mechanism or the way of the new nobility we are about to explore. Biella returned to Heila's thread. Your comment seems familiar to our souls. Yes, to me and the new nobility. The world is a description, and we are the ones describing it. Biella had decided for now she would relate and express herself from both the personal perspective and that of the new nobility. Heila was relating on the personal level for now, but she was still a delegate who seemed to not have been able to take in all the interactions until a few days before. There was also Ursula. Biella wanted to provide some framework. E is equal to mc squared is also a spiritual expression, she said, and m is equal to E divided by c squared. We are the ones taking E and through the mechanism of consciousness, dividing it at c squared. I'm simply saying there's an actual scientific basis to all of this. In case, which seems the case, Biella smiled. You have an inner aspect akin to my Ms. A. I love my Ms. A. She insists on order, on rigorous logic, on things making sense. Without her, it is easy to get lost in fantasy. However, as her name suggests, she can get carried away with herself. The new nobility have developed an entire philosophy of dealing with her. They call it leveraging the inner aspects. It's profound in its simplicity. In this case, introducing the m equal E divided by c squared equation and relating it to the world being a description is enough to satisfy my Ms. A. Biella felt herself getting caught in the narrative. She hadn't planned to say so this much, but it couldn't be helped. It all flowed from the connection with Heila and the ongoing dialogue with Ursula. Biella continued. We have pressures inside of ourselves for all sorts of reasons. The secrets of relieving them is to realize an actual real world three-dimensional solution is not needed. Those pressures are just as easily eased in the virtual world within us. In this case, had I not introduced m is equal to E divided by c squared in the context of the world's description, my Ms. A would have been stressed at the thought that my position is unsubstantiated. Or you might have cause to think I was irrational by making a statement like that without justification. She would have felt the pressure from the perspective of establishing a field, laying a foundation, and so on. To not supply that foundational aspect would, to her, be building a top-heavy structure. Biella checked to see if they were still interested. I go into Ms. A somewhat because as conscious beings, we have to have at least two personas in order to be able to perceive one of them. In my experience, and I have been an extremely diligent student of others, everyone has multiple personas or aspects. This is very good in my view. They are specialists, but unless we learn how to deal with them, to relieve their pressure virtually, they will influence us in ways not in accord with our greater selves, or, in other words, the universe. I use the terms synonymously. Biella reiterated with a synopsis, adapting to the situation, knowing full well explanations were never wasted. We are a part of the universe. It's a part of us. To me, to the new nobility, we are trying to become fully conscious of ourselves. This brings me to a huge point, one connected to appropriateness. the appropriateness of ourselves in the greatest context, in the universal context. In that context, connecting it with us describing the world, the new nobility see the universe as a giant mechanism geared to enhancing awareness, specifically ours. For if we are the one describing it, would that not be the ultimate we create for ourselves according to what we need to learn? What do we need more than awareness? We need it in order to be appropriate, not just appropriate in the narrow contexts we can perceive in our immediate lives, but in the context of our entire lives and beyond. It was never easy expressing complexity. It's why the new nobility adopted an oral tradition. It forced the continuous re-expression of these points, every iteration helping their incorporation and application within. Awareness is the key to appropriateness, particularly when it comes to appropriateness beyond our perception. How are we to be appropriate when it comes to what we do not know? How can we be appropriate when it comes to what we do not know? How can we tap into the greater system which we are all a part of, but we are not fully aware of? How can we access that in order to be in the right place at the right time to be most appropriate? We access appropriateness via awareness of the connection to our greater self, via awareness of the connection to the universe. That's how. Many ways to do this, primarily by leveraging our ways of being, our ways of doing, via the connecting links to the greater system, that system beyond time and space. The link to energy directly. Anomalies are such a link. Biella, let that resonate for a minute. The anomalies are such a link, she repeated. Biella, elaborate. The use and understanding of anomalies is a vitally important aspect of the new nobility's way of being. All the theories and philosophies in the world mean nothing if there's no way to connect them to action, to connect them to the greater system. Without that connection, there'd only always be knowing from within the confines of whatever limited knowledge is available to each individual. No matter how large that knowledge may seem to be, it would always be limited in relation to universal knowledge. Biella continued. The anomalies, they don't fall within the parameters of the known. They defy logic and reason and consequence. Also linear time. Anomalies are in a word, magical. For those who might object to magic, I say, if you do not believe in magic, then by all that's precious, please broaden your definition. If you do not believe in magic, then by all that's precious, please broaden your definition. Anomalies manifest in a myriad ways. We have to be alert. We have to always be paying attention. Anything which happens to the most minute of minutiae can have an anomalous component. Anomalies are difficult to explain by way of example because they are so inextricably intertwined to the context of their manifestation. Part of the context is intent. Our intent and our intents. We have to continuously be aware of what we are intending and what we have intended. This is critical. For without that awareness, we will miss the significance of much that happens. Without connecting our awareness specifically to anomalies and intent, we won't notice the magic. We will write it off as coincidence or ignore it completely because it seems to be too good to be true and not be aware for a host of other reasons. The key to intent is impeccability. The key to intent is impeccability. Intent is a major component in understanding anomalies. We have to be scrupulous in our intent. We have to be scrupulous in our intent. For how are we going to describe that which is not so? How do we bring into being that which is unjustifiable in doubt, especially as we are bringing it into our lives as a lesson? Our greater selves, which are also non-conscious, are geared only to that which is best for us, to enhancing our awareness so that it can be fully aware of itself. This is why everything that happens is good in some way. Somewhere there is a good reason for it. It's up to us to find that good reason. They are not always obvious or apparent. And of course, we have to understand good is not necessarily nice. And of course, we have to understand good is not necessarily nice. Such a critical point. However, if we are impeccable in our intents, if we have cleaned our being to only that which is good and sensible, if we are geared towards joy, love, appreciation, awareness, etc., we will find the anomalies and our wants, desires, and what exactly and precisely we feel like doing are all geared towards bringing us to a state of grace. From that state, we are in tune, in harmony with the greater dynamic. We are fluid, flexible, adaptive, alert, eager, aware, paying attention. We become beings of perception, fully immersed in the grand mystery that is unraveling, engulfed in the discovery of our greater awareness. Neither Heila nor Ursula said anything. They were letting what Biella had said sink in. A lot, Biella knew. No easy way to grasp it, particularly in one go. The best way was to continually come at it from different angles and perspectives, especially to utilize different formats. Biella let more time pass. After a while, she said, I had told Ursula a story about the young man earlier. The young man is a semi-mythological figure in the law and history of the new nobility. The majority of the stories are based in fact, but over the years it has also become a mechanism for storytelling. I would like to tell you a young man's story. That's one of the origin stories, as it relates so perfectly. And it seems the young man is to be one of the themes of the day. It's called The Gift of Intent. Heila and Ursula's interest returned to Biella. I have developed a fondness for this young man, Ursula said. Heila, make sure to get Biella to tell you the story of his dream to change the world. Fantastic. Ursula smiled with a grand gleam of love in her eyes. The young man had made an impression on her. Or any new noble could tell you the story, I imagine, she added. But I am distracting us. Please, Biella, continue. I am keen to hear the story. Heila nodded her eagerness in agreement. Biella cleared her throat a touch theatrically, getting into story mode. The Gift of Intent. One day, in a faraway land, a young man said to his heart, I have tried mightily to learn, to acquire wisdom. After all my studies of scriptures, texts, philosophies, literatures, and more, I have not found an answer. His heart asked sweetly, to what question? He pondered this as he had been, wanting to express himself clearly. This was dear to his soul. I want to live right. I want to be sure I am making good decisions. But all the learning in the world cannot ensure my choices are appropriate. In the short term, they seem fine. Longer term, it is hard to know. The same with context. I have come to understand clearly my knowledge is limited and will always be limited. He considered his own words carefully. It is this limitation of knowledge that concerns me. Knowledge is not information, and neither of these are wisdom. The dream of self-wisdom is flawed. The dream of self-wisdom is flawed. His heart understood. She always understood. She waited, keen to hear more. Dreams were delicate, especially when they transitioned. New dreams required tender care. Each was the other's dream. Now there would be one dream. The young man continued earnestly. Unless I am conceited, and I fear this daily, I cannot ever be sure of my decisions. I know they are flawed, or likely to be in the long term. This is my concern, not for the decisions of the year now, but for my life decisions. His heart responded, yes, how can we know what is best for us when we cannot conceive of what could be best? She watched the young man carefully. Insincerity seemed to make him sad. He continued, I am committed to modesty. I am committed to humility. I refuse to fall prey to self-importance. I refuse. And I refuse to be limited by my own decision-making inability. I cannot continue any longer in this way. I have to change. Will you change with me, dear heart? This is a matter they could only undertake together. They were one heart. She had already changed. Yes, I will. I will embrace a new way of living. We cannot honestly continue in this way if we are serious about our path. Our decisions are limited. She looked at him, open to solution. I have given this much thought, he said somewhat obviously. Since we cannot trust any decisions made with limited information, we need access to universal information. I intend to look outside myself for answers. I am too limited. I will look to the universe for answers. The universe has access to universal information. He stopped there. So much was still unsaid. The implications were enormous. They explored these, feeling them, shaping them, bending to them. They extended themselves into the unknown consequences. Their world was shifting. They wanted to shift with it. They wanted to be sure. Enthusiasm could be dangerous, they knew. Eagerness to search and find truth likewise had led them astray. Making sure this was a true and good decision was foremost on their minds. They were alone in that moment, alone as never before. They were naked with themselves. They knew there was no going back. Even if they decided to remain the way they were, they would be chained forever by this knowledge. It would not be a comfortable life to live. Knowing they were always flawed in their decisions would be a compromise they would not endure easily. The decision to change was one they desperately wanted to make. Their earnest desire to learn, to improve, had driven them. It was not something they did. It was who they were. It was what they did on the inside. It was not only their primary focus, it was their predilection. Their concern was rashness, eagerness, desperation perhaps. These, they were aware, could corrupt even the best of intentions. They came to this point not as an exercise of intellectual curiosity, not as an exploration of what could be, but as a result of their sobriety. They were now engulfed in that sobriety, face to face with the full sobriety of the moment. What to do? Continue living as they had been, or change to living in a way where their decisions were made according to universal information? This would be a radically different way of living, requiring them to be courageous. They would have to be prepared to do whatever was dictated by force of circumstance and the flow of events. Not making any decisions based on internal information only was not something lightly undertaken. How exactly would this work? What would the decision-making mechanisms be? They knew, but not clearly. It was something they intuitively understood. At that moment, however, this understanding was not a fully detailed knowledge. Answering this question would be a part of their path to come if they decided to traverse this path. An early fall, but the wind swirled unexpectedly. A sheet of paper fluttered to the ground. It was not a windy day. The paper was not litter. It was anomalous. It was a pamphlet. Maybe someone had dropped it. No one was around. Even a pamphlet was unusual. They had never seen one like it. The heading had the word heritage promptly featured. It consisted of a list of points concerning living. Phrases like manifest destiny and embrace your heritage grabbed their attention. These phrases seemed peculiarly incongruent in the text of the pamphlet. They understood immediately This was a communication just for them. The ordinary meaning of the pamphlet was barely comprehensible. They were spellbound by the abstract meaning. It was abundantly clear as any message could be. The question foremost on their minds, and which they had spoken out aloud, was should they embrace universal decision-making? Should they change their lives to live lives where their decision would be influenced by the universe? They were sincerely interested in wanting to know if giving up on personal decision-making and switching to universal decision-making was a good idea. The communication from the pamphlet was obvious and apparent. They understood heritage to mean the heritage of all humans to have access to universal input. They understood manifest destiny to mean their destiny manifesting right there and then, at that very moment. They were overwhelmed. Not only had they received an answer, but the way they had received the answer was so incredible. There was no doubt whatsoever. This was a communication from the universe. The implications were astounding. They knew there was a relationship between them and the universe, and indeed between all people and the universe, if they chose it. They knew it was not the kind of relationship where one could ask for whatever one wanted and indulge in fantasies and desires. They understood the relationship between them and the universe was one founded on intent. They would have to figure things out for themselves. But at the same time, the universe would always be there to assist when needed. There was a reason why the universe could not communicate directly. At that time, they were not able to express why precisely, but they knew. They would have to be attentive, to watch for clues and subtle shifts in the flow of things, and to get the guidance they desired. This felt good to them. They valued their independence and the value of figuring things out for themselves. It is when those limits were reached that the universe would come into play, as it had at that momentous moment. The young man hugged his heart fiercely, and for a long time, staring into each other's eyes, they confirmed the commitment to their intent. From now on, everything we do will be because of the universe, he said softly. Yes, we will look outside ourselves and not only consider our own decisions, his heart said. From now on, we will follow wherever the universe may lead us, no matter how strange and odd it may seem. From now on, we will follow wherever the universe may lead us, no matter how strange and odd it may seem. We will just have to trust. We have no choice. As we have come to the conclusion, we cannot fully trust ourselves. Yes, yes, the young man agreed, almost reverently. He was entranced by the moment. The awesome and unbelievable chain of events amazed him. He made an effort to review everything that had happened, to make sure they were not construing events to suit their ideals. He could find no flaw in themselves or their conception of events. Conclusions were inescapable. They would live their lives in attunement to the universe from that moment on. It would turn out to be the most profound choice they ever made, starting them on a journey that was inspiring, exciting, fulfilling, and so incredibly rewarding. They would find it difficult to express the awesomeness of that decision and all that followed from it, and still does to this day. All made possible by their complete and enduring commitment to learning and growing. They were indeed the universe's hearts. All made possible by their complete and enduring commitment to learning and growing. They were indeed the universe's hearts. The end, said Biella. End chapter 14. You're muted, Beena. You're muted. I want to read Norma's beautiful, wonderful comments. I was engrossed in the story, Norma, and I wanted to read it all the way through. So I wasn't looking at the comments. I hope Beena's sound is better. Beena, are you there? You're muted. A beautiful thought of Ursula. Yes, yes. Very beautiful, yes. Ursula's thoughts coming in there. As she said earlier, she was trying to not say too much because she wants to stay an observer, but this was very potent. Yes, we are different personalities to variety of people. Yes, Norma. Yes, very
Yes.
potent comment there. Don't
Yes.
understand like the word mechanism. Yes, okay. Mechanism sounds a bit mechanical, but
I
uh,
use a lot.
yes, yes. What word can we say for a structure? You could say instead of mechanism, or um, um, uh, well, I don't want to call it a program because that also sounds wrong. But really, Norma, what it is a materialized intent. And that is the intent of the universe, which is our intent, because we and the universe are one, right? But it's a greater intent than what we are able to imagine with our smaller selves. It's the intent of our greater selves, right? So the word mechanism is simply the way that intent materializes, yes, and comes into play. So you could call it a structure, a pattern, a process, yes, but mechanism because there are rules to it. And so I use this word mechanism. But really, it's because it's difficult to find an appropriate word for it. But as an intent, a materialized intent, this is the most appropriate. Awareness maybe of oneness, or are they always going to be individuals? They are going to be one and maintain the individuality. This is the point of deliberateness, Norma. When we become aware, right, of the one, we are like the drop falling into the ocean. If the drop loses its individuality, it ceases to be a drop. And in the moment it ceases to be a drop, it then also ceases to be aware of dropness and of oceanness. Yes? And it loses its awareness. So in order to maintain its awareness, it needs to maintain its dropness. However, it also needs to merge with the ocean. It cannot help but merge with the ocean. The trick is to maintain its individuality and connect its awareness to the greater awareness. Thus, we remain one, a little one, and we become capital O one simultaneously, right? This is the power of independence of being. We are able to maintain our individuality and we are able to merge with the more, with the greaterness, right? So it's a tricky conception, right? Because it seems contradictory, but it isn't. Yes. For instance, when you're singing in a choir, yeah, you sung in choirs, right, Norma? Don't you do exactly this? You maintain your individuality, but you merge completely with the one of the choir. You become choir right now. This doesn't always happen in all choirs, but when it does, it is a most incredible thing. It's really beautiful and fantastic. And the moreness comes into play, right? But you are still aware that you are contributing and you are part of that one. And it's a fantastic thing, but you're still aware of your individuality. Yes? Yeah, very, very powerful. Yeah. Um, the universe now in play or only just recognized? I'm not sure when you said this, Norma, but for the young man and his heart, they always had recognized the universe, but it was shifting the priority of its connectivity and influence. They shifted from deciding based on your personal history, your personal understanding of how the world works, making those decisions. That's typically how everybody does it in the world, right? I make a decision as to what I want to do, what's right for me, where I'm going, how I act, how I behave, based on my personal agendas, my personal likes, my personal wants, my personal understanding of what's sensible, my personal understanding of how the world works. But the young man said this is flawed because he thought it through to the end. And he realized that he'd made great efforts to study all the important philosophical works of literature, scripture, everything he could lay his hands on, right? He studied them all. And this was pursuing the goal of self-wisdom. And he said, no matter how much I know, it's still a drop compared to the totality. It's still nothing compared to the entirety. So therefore, when I'm looking at the future, and especially the unknown, how can I possibly make decisions which have any sense? Because my decision making is based on the known, on the present, which is based on the past, right? All connected. So I can't know. So I can't know the smallness. Yes. So this was very profound. And it goes against every single thing. It is a profound, every single thing we know of in our typical lives. It is a profound example and application of the magic and also of philosophy of opposite. He was saying, what I'm doing now isn't working and cannot work. Not only isn't working, but cannot work. When you think it through to the end, it can't work. Because as individuals, our knowledge is so limited. Our awareness is so limited. However, the universe has access to universal information. Therefore, when I shift from listening to my own inner sensibility to shift to listening to the universe's communications, to the flow of events, force of circumstance, pattern, and anomalies, all of the mechanisms that involve the language of the universe, right? Or the language of the world. They're two separate things, actually. Language of the world, language of the universe. The language of our greater selves, right? Now we are shifting our greater self, the universe, the world, all connected. Yes. So when we start to listen to that voice and that pattern, which is not a voice in the usual sense, right? Because it's expressed through everything. Everything becomes symbolic. Everything becomes meaningful. Absolutely everything. It changes everything. However, this also requires you to be able to trust. Why? Because the universe is going to say, hey, you know what? You're on this road here, driving along happily, la 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 la, listening to your music and getting your mojo on and whatever, right? And the universe says, nope, sorry, you can't continue on this nice, beautiful highway. You got to take this little side road over here that's all bumpy and rutted and awkward and slow, and you're going to bounce around. But why? The road is so brilliant. It's so awesome. You say, it's a wonderful highway. I want to continue cruising and have my auto cruise on and whatever. Nope, the universe says, you got to go, right? Now, if you're paying attention, you turn off, right? Because it's anomalies and everything it's saying to you. Why? Because it turns out that, up ahead, in 100 miles or whatever, the bridge has collapsed and they've closed the road. And if you drove all that way, you wouldn't have caused an accident because it's all closed and everything, but you would have to come all the way back and turn off. So the universe is trying to save you time. But it seems irrational and illogical at the time. Yes. But this is, if we pay attention, this happens. Yeah. I have a wonderful story about the soldier who jumped off the cliff to illustrate this. Yeah. What was the soldier's name again? Lotus. That was the soldier's name. So Lotus and his squad are out patrolling, yes, in the jungle. But they come to this clearing, and this clearing is on an upward slope. And at the end of the slope, it seems like there's a cliff or something, right? They're not sure. So they leave the jungle and they walk up this clearing and up to the top of the slope, right? And they say, oh, wow, look, this is like, it's like a kind of a canyon, and there's this river down below, and everything is brilliant. And right at that moment, they busy checking this out. Lotus just decides to jump off the cliff into the river. Bloody hell, Lotus! The lieutenant shouts, "What the hell are you doing? I never said you must do this. Come on, And then the lieutenant is like, bugger it. Now we all have to jump because we can't just leave him there and go. We'll get separated. So it's like, oh, bloody hell, Lotus! Now you force us all to jump. And he says, all right, bloody hell, we'll deal with Lotus later on. And the rest of the troopers like, poor Lotus, he's really going to get it now. And the lieutenant is very much unamused. Yeah. And so they all jump. And the lieutenant is the last one to jump. Right as he jumps, he looks back down the sloping cliff towards the forest. And he sees an enemy squad coming out of the forest. But the enemy hasn't seen them, right? He's jumping just in time. He's seen the enemy, but the enemy hasn't seen them, right? So he knows that had Lotus not jumped at that moment, and in that exact time, the enemy would have seen them and they would have been sitting ducks, because then the enemy would have been able to shoot them across this clearing. They'd have cover in the forest. All right, they were able to jump into the river, but then the enemy would have rushed up this open area and been able to shoot them from up above, and they'd all be dead, right? So Lotus, in his idiotic nonsense, supposedly, was actually profoundly prophetically ahead of time, right? And he saved their lives, the whole squad. Because now the enemy is going to explore and kind of walk up there slowly and casually by the time they come. And by that time, they don't, washed further down the river far enough to be out of range, right? And not seen and not be in danger of getting shot. So this is just brilliant and really an example of like intuition being really good. Now, Lotus was quite the intuitive fellow, obviously. So,
Brilliant story.
when it came to the reckoning, supposedly, okay, he didn't disobey orders, but he also, kind of acted in a way that was not contrary to any order, but, made them do stuff. So of course the lieutenant has to speak to him, but he can't really, get Lotus into trouble. But he's still curious. So he asked Lotus, Lotus, what in the hell made you jump off the cliff? And Lotus like, well, I don't know. Just seemed the right thing to do at the time. Lotus didn't have a very particularly good grasp on his intuition. Of course, had Lotus been an aspirant or a new noble, he would have said, there was an anomaly that pressured. There was just a feeling in the air. I could sense something in the forest was different. Yes, when we left it, the birds had started singing again and all that. But now that I think of it,
If he would
they'd
be
got
able
quiet
to
again.
observe.
Exactly. He would have seen some kind of an anomaly that would have alerted him. But it
Okay,
had
so
been too
sorry to
fast.
interrupt you, but I'm going
No
to
problem.
eat now.
No problem. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. No problem. Any comments before you go to eat on the chapter, the story overall?
Oh, this is so wonderful. I was just listening and it was like, wow. Because so many shades of Biella. It's like, okay, she's opening up, she's more spontaneous. Of
Correct.
course, she's always,
Correct.
but it's more
Yeah. Yeah.
freeness in the
Correct.
whole
Correct.
expression.
Right. Because you're seeing the appropriateness. It's not like she was inhibited before. It's just that
Yes.
this situation allows that part of her to come out. Why?
Yes.
Because before she was mainly dealing with the delegates, and it was a more formal interaction. Now, this the gesture of friendship from Heila, right, has now made a profound difference here. So she has the license to be more spontaneous and have that deepness come through, right? And that
Right.
caring and this intensity of connectivity. Her relationship with Heila is different to hers with Ursula, right? I mean, she's been spontaneously connecting with Ursula, but with Ursula, it's there's a familiarity of connectivity that is beyond this gesture of friendship, right? They are like, hey, we've known each other forever, right? They're like soul buddies. Yeah? So it's a very different relationship. So we are seeing this come out, not like I was saying, not because she was inhibiting herself or no, but because it's now appropriate to be so. Biella is always dictated by appropriateness, and the appropriateness dictated by force of circumstance and the greater context. Look how she doesn't forget greater context. For instance, that Heila is both a friend now, a deep personal friend, but also a delegate, right? She keeps both in mind, right? So she's always looking at greater context and immediate context.
Okay,
all right. So I hope. Well, I'm going to India now. It's very appropriate because I want to keep this contained.
Thank you.
Oh, absolute delicious pleasure. And thank you for your comments, Norma. Wonderful comments. Did I answer your comments appropriately, Norma? Is there anything more that you wish to know? I love your comments, Norma. Again, today I'm reading the whole thing through, so I wasn't able to respond to them in real time. But tomorrow, when we do the reread, we will. I'd forgotten that. I said this yesterday. I just want to add, Beena, I'd forgotten that the gift of intent story was included in this, and I need to put the heading there. I forgot to put it in there. But I'm going to go and fix that now. But this was very profound, and when we go over it in the detail, that the gift of intent story applies so profoundly to Heila and her entire point. She's sort of understanding connectivity to the universe and anomalies, but not realizing that in order to really benefit, we have to do it thoroughly. Yes. So you don't have to quite go to the full extent that the young man and his heart to, but we do need to really make this front and center. Otherwise, we miss so much value, right? And this is what Heila's not quite stepping across that point of application. She's understanding it intellectually, but she's not realizing that you can have awareness and some discernment, which she has here, and come to understanding, which she also has, but it's all lacking because of application. So the story of the gift of intent is the young man understood about application, which is why that whole story comes about. He wants to change, to live differently. Yeah. Oh, I think I'll have to get Zoom. Yes. What is Aspirant? Oh, I don't know what that last word means. Very, very magical word there. Wow, it sounds like a spell, like a word that you make a spell with. Aspirant. Oh, wow, very cool, Norm. Very cool. All right, on that beautiful point, and I want to leave it there. Also, Beena, and did you notice the editing in the story at the end of the gift of intent? There was some editing. Beena, did you notice, or have you gone already to eat? Beena? Oh, I think maybe Beena went to go eat already. Anyway, I'll chat to you about it later. Well, I changed it slightly to make it more appropriate. In the greater context. And this is something that Biella would do as well. All right, brilliant. Thank you, Norma. Thank you, Norma. I love that you're here. I think Beena had to go and eat there because they eat late, all the family together, and it's 11:30 at night already, so she's a bit late there. So they're probably waiting for her. All right, Beena is a magical family, a new nobility family. It's truly incredible, really wonderful. All right. On that wonderful note, I shall end everything. All right. Bye-bye, everybody. Bye-bye, Norma. We'll chat, of course. Continue. All right. This was too wonderful. Bye-bye, everybody. End meeting for all.